Right, hello there ladies and gents, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be working on this PlayStation 5 Slim. This is a very nice PlayStation and I've had this on the workbench before and it's come back for basically the same problem. I remember this console, and the reason that I remember this console is because I had to do quite a extensive trace repair on the Ethernet port. And unfortunately, it's come back to me with the same issue. The Ethernet port isn't working. So, if I connect this all up, I'll connect it up to HDMI, and I'll also show you me plugging in a Ethernet cable. And yeah, you be the judge of it. You be the judge of what's actually happened here. So, anyway, with that being said, my name's Hakko. I'm an electronics technician. I mainly work on games consoles, but I do work on other stuff as well. So if you enjoy that kind of thing and you want to see more, be sure to get subscribed and turn on the bell notifications. That way you won't miss any future videos. And if you need to organise a repair, get in touch at thecody.repair. You can send me a quote request, I will get back to you, and then you can send it over for repair. You can also drop it off if you prefer to do that as well, if you're local to me. And if you need parts and supplies, that'll help with your repair. If you want to repair it yourself and you just need parts, you can buy those on my online store at consolefix.shop. But with that being said, let's get into today's video. You probably don't give a damn about what I've got to say, but just hear me out for a minute, alright? We all know that those sweaty little douchebags with cheesy fingers, living in the mom's basement, drinking Red Bull and simping over TikTok losers are gonna break the console. And you and I both know that you're too cheap to buy off eBay, you're too impatient to wait for AliExpress, and you're just about smart enough to avoid Amazon completely. You can admit it, because I'm exactly the same. That's why I started my online store, consolefix.shop. I'll sell every part you'll need to fix the Xbox One, Series S, Series X, PS4, PS5 and Nintendo Switch consoles. So why not give me the money instead of some random dude on eBay? At least if I have it, you know it's not going to waste on some stupid thing like promoted eBay listings or food for the kids or something. If you give me your money instead, I'll promise I'll use it on useful things, like buying views on TikTok. So before you decide to go to one of the more popular sites and line the pockets of some fat cat loser, take a look at my online store. Check out the link in the video description or the top pinned comment and get 10% off any order over £25 during checkout. Alright, now you can go back to watching this douchebag on YouTube trying to fix something.
You can't say stuff like that in an advert, dude.
You're not my dad, dude. Don't tell me what to do.
That's what you think, Phil.
Wait, what? Mom? Alright, so let's just go over what's actually going on with this. So if we plug in a Ethernet port, actually no, I'll just show you it working first. So there's the console working. And then obviously the issue with this has been reported that the Ethernet port's not working. And like I said, I've worked on this myself before in the past. But if we look at this here, you'll probably hear this when I actually plug this in. So you see that? That's not plugged in right now. Obviously I can just pull that out. That's not plugged in, right? And did you hear that click? And then I'll really struggle to get this to come out, right? It's not the cable. It's not my Ethernet cable. This is a fairly decent quality cable. And if I just grab a, let's grab a donor board for a Series S, why not? Series X. Actually, that does. Oh, that could. Oh, huh. No, that does come out pretty easily. It does. You do hear the click, but it does come out pretty easily, right? But actually, that's loosened up a little bit, but it hasn't loosened coming out. Yeah, I'm really struggling to get that out. So yeah, there's definitely an issue there. However, there's also another issue, and that other issue is the HDMI port. So the HDMI port, I've noticed there's a little bit of kind of artifacting on the screen, but it's also on an angle, right? So if we look at this, it is working, and if I give it the wiggle test, the port doesn't, you know, the screen doesn't go off or anything. I'm wiggling that cable right now. But if we go to the dashboard, and go to network, set up internet, and you'll see that wired LAN is greyed out. It did flick on for a brief second there, but wired LAN is greyed out. It's not detecting a LAN. I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on the LAN cable to see if it does pick up. No, it does not. Okay. So we're not getting any activity on the LAN at all. So the LAN isn't working. So I'm going to shut this down. We're going to take it apart. But I will show you one thing really, really quickly. So let's just get that out. That come out a little bit easier that time. It's very inconsistent though. But let's just wait for this to shut down. So I'll never pull the plug out until it's shut down completely. Like that. There we go. So if we just take a look at this, and you'll see this a little bit closer when I actually get inside the console. But another thing I noticed is that HDMI port, number one, the plastic is damaged. So it's not going to focus for me. I'll show you that under the microscope actually. It'll give me a better focus. So if we just take a look at that, if you look at the HDMI port itself, it's on a very slight angle. Can you see that? See the inconsistency in the gap? So the HDMI port's on a slight angle, and we've also got damage around there as well, right? The LAN looks okay, but looks can be very, very deceiving on a Ethernet port. But yeah, so this Ethernet port I've actually replaced myself before, and it was working fine when it got sent back, although I did have a bit of a game getting this working because of the amount of damage that it actually had. So anyway, we're going to get this thing apart, we're going to take a look and see what we can do about fixing it. Okie dokie. So, yeah, like I say, this has been... that's a little bit wonky as well, that disk drive connector. That's very slightly wonky. I'll have to look into that. This will probably all get done as the same repair. I'm not going to charge, I'm not going to charge for a HDMI port and a Ethernet port. It's just that I can't really warranty it, if I see something faulty. But I've got a feeling that's got some damage as well, because that is angled. I'll see if that'll focus. If not, we'll just show it under the microscope in a minute. But yeah, you can definitely see that. That's definitely angled, 100%. So yeah, we've got some damage to that as well. So my theory here is that this has been dropped again and it's damaged the repair work that I've already done. I'm not trying to get out of a warranty on this because it's not under warranty, but I don't think it's my repair work which has failed here. I think this is a case of it's just been damaged again. That's what we see quite often. Normally when you get people who damage, and this is no offense to any customer, but normally when you get people who damage HDMI ports or Ethernet ports or any kind of port, you normally tend to have multiple cases of it, before they learn their lesson, so to speak, and stop moving the console around. But I do get a feeling this has been dropped or knocked or something, and that's what caused the damage this time around. But we'll see how my repair held up. But I thought I'd do a video on this. Number one, because the customer wants me to, or at least I think he does. But number two, just to, if there is something wrong with my repair, I'm going to stand by it. And I'm going to, obviously, do it for free under warranty. Like, even though it's only a 3-month warranty, if it's just a case of, one of my wires have come loose, then, of course, I'm going to stand by it and I'm going to, do it under warranty, even though it's out of warranty. I'm not going to just leave the customer in the lurch like that. I'm not that kind of person. So, yeah, we'll see anyway. We'll see what the situation is with it and see what actually goes on with this when we get it under the microscope. But I'm going to fast forward through this bit and I will pick up the video when the motherboard's out and I'm ready to go. Okay, so I'm inside the console here, and this has, well, it's seen better days, hasn't it? This board. So we've got some slight signs of liquid damage around the edges. I don't know if that's flux or what, but it wouldn't be my flux. But, yeah, because I worked on the, well, I don't know. No, it can't be flux, can it? No, it's not. It's not flux. There's definitely some signs of liquid, though. But anyway, let's have a look under the scope, shall we? So the first thing I want to look at is this connector here. Right, I don't recall me doing a repair on this. That's been changed before, but I don't recall that being me. I'll probably add a little bit of heat to that and just straighten it out, because that is definitely on an angle. Maybe, I don't know, heat's not going to really do that, is it? It's just a little bit bent. But yeah, that's been repaired, so yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this has been somewhere else since, or whether it was done before that, or what, I don't know. Let's have a look here. So yeah, this HDMI port is definitely angled. Yeah, the HDMI port is angled. Don't know if the HDMI port was me, but this was the repair that I did. So as you'll see there, when I get the thing in focus. Okay, so that's all, by the look of it, fairly solid. Yeah, so it looks like my traces have stood up. So this is going to be a case of damage to the actual port itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this port, and I'm going to have to, by the look of it, redo the traces on this, because when I lift it off, I don't think these are going to hold in place. So I'm going to heat up from under the board, and this is leaded solder that's on here, so it shouldn't be an issue removing this quite safely. I'll go for 440 degrees Celsius, 40% airflow. Okay, there we are. Right, so as you can see there, there's quite a bit of bad trace damage to that. So what I think I'm going to try and do is I'm going to remove the magnetics module as well, and I'm going to end up melting this, but I don't really care. I can just replace it, it's fine. So I'm going to remove this module as well, so I'll desolder that, and I'm just going to basically reroute all of the traces and get it redone. I'm just going to get rid of that as well. There we are. And I'm going to desolder the rest of these wires from here as well. There we are. Right. So now I'm just going to add a tad of flux. And I'm just going to retin all of these solder pads. There we are. Good stuff. Right, let's add a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and clean it up, see what we're working with here. So we have got some signs of a little bit of singeing on this, and the reason for that is because this is a very, very thin area with basically nothing in between it, right? So basically we end up having to heat up the board, and it causes the board to singe. It's fairly common on the Ethernet circuit on these. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do to avoid it either. Okay, so what I plan to do is rerun all of the jumper wires. But first I'm just going to clean out the holes for the anchor points. So I'm just going to add a little bit of leaded solder to these. Just using a little bit of hot air to assist me there. Struggling a little bit to clean those out. Let's go in from the back. Right, okay, so the reason I've cleared those holes out is because when I do drop the port back on, I can just drop it in and then solder it from this side. It just makes it a lot easier, especially when you're running jumper wires and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's how I'm going to tackle this one. So, there's those holes cleared out. So, we're ready to start running some jumper wires now. Just as soon as I clear that up, there we are. Okay. There we go. Beautiful. Right, so if we look at this up nice and close, and if we take a look, you'll see how these are wired up. So they don't just go straight to the pins. Some of them are a little bit backwards, sort of thing. So basically, we need to reroute these so as they're actually connecting to the corresponding pins, because the way your Ethernet is wired up, they're wired up in pairs and they must be in the correct orientation for it to work. Or in the correct place for it to work, rather, should I say. So, ignoring this bit of random conformal coating and stuff on the board, that's absolutely solid. It's not going to come off very easily. I could grind it, but there's no point. But, yeah. Let's start running some jumper wires, shall we? So, one thing that I like to do is just add a load of flux, and then I can tin a bunch of this jumper wire, because this wire is actually coated, so we're going to need to remove the coating off it for it to become conductive. So we'll just give this a scrape with the iron. And we're just going to tin a load of this because we're going to need a fair bit of it. So I might as well just pre-tin the wire now. There we go. And then it is important to get these roughly the same length as well. The traces all need to be roughly the correct length, which is why we've got zigzags and stuff on them, because these are differential pairs and the timing does matter. It will affect speed, it will affect performance, so we need to make sure that we get this right. So we're going to start off, I'm left-handed, so I'm going to start off with the right hand one. So the far right is going to be this one here. So I'm just going to solder a wire to there like that, and then I can use my tweezers just to hold it, get it in place while I get a nice connection. There we are. But I'm going to try and get this in the position where the trace is, and the reason for that is because I want to route this correctly. I want to route it in the same, well, with the same route that the original trace had, right? And you can see I don't quite have enough there to get that, so we're going to need to give it some more, just a little bit, not much. So it doesn't matter how long the wire is, as long as the length of the connection is correct, right? So you can have excess wire on the end, but you can't have, you know, for example, one really short wire going straight up and then one really long wire where there's a, you know, a loop-de-loop in the cable and stuff like that, in the wire and stuff like that. So we need to try and get these as close to equal as we possibly can, which is why I like to follow the same route. A couple of millimeters isn't going to hurt, well, it's not going to hurt too much, but obviously we don't want more than a couple of millimeters difference on it. I'm just going to break this one away. There we are. So there's number one done, and you'll see that we've already used most of this jumper wire that I've just tinned, but we're going to go for number two. So I'll just run that there. Let's get it off that wire just to stop it from soldering onto it. There we are. We'll bend that up there like that. And that's my first 2 wires run. You're not going to get them sitting absolutely perfect because there's nothing for them to sit in. But you want to get them as close to perfect as you can. So if there was a groove there for them to sit in, then we'd be okay, but there's not. The problem is, in a minute, when I clean the flux away on here, it's going to move all of these wires anyway, but we've at least got the right length. Right, and then these ones are a little bit awkward. So we've got one here going to a via there, and another one there going to a via. We need to find out where they go to. So if we take a donor board here, and you'll see what I mean when I say this is awkward. If we go into continuity mode, and we pop one probe on the 3rd pin from the right, just there, and then we find out where these go. You'll see that one goes there, but then, hold on a second. That's saying that's, okay, that's saying that's dead short on both of them. That's strange. Let me check another board. Okay, so is that one. Okay, that's annoying. Right, let me set my threshold. I've got my threshold set to 10 ohms here. So, in fact, I'm going to go lower than that. I'm going to go for 3 ohms on my threshold on the multimeter. So basically it won't beep unless we've got a 3 ohm short. And they still both beep. Lovely. Of course they do. So I don't actually know which one goes to which on this. Right, I'll tell you what then. I'm going to remove this here. So this is the way I'm going to solve this. I'm going to remove this module. I'll try and remove it without melting it because I can reuse it then. Not that I'm bothered. So it looks like they are connected internally, but I do want to make sure I get it correct. No, it's going to melt it. No, never mind. I'm not really bothered about one of these. I've got hundreds of them. And I certainly don't buy my donor boards for those because it's rare that they actually fail. But now I've broke the connection on that, and we should be able to get it more accurate. There we go. So that one there goes to there. So if we check that one again, we get a beep. If we check this one, we get no beep. And the reason that we don't get any beep this time is because I've broken the connection, right? So this one here will go to this one. So that's how that's wired up. So this trace to here, this trace to here. And that's what I'm going to do. So even though it's not going to make a difference by the look of it, because it looks like they are connected internally on the south bridge, even though it's not going to make a difference, I still want to get it right. So I'm going to tin some more of this wire. There we are. Make a temporary connection. There we go. And then if I route this, I don't think I'm going to be able to get a connection on the via that is there. So this one actually goes through the board just because of how these are routed. Don't think I'm going to get a contact on the via, but I'll try. Just to reinforce it a little bit. Nah. Maybe. Okay. Right, do I get continuity from that pin to that wire? No. And that's one of the reasons I had to run traces as well, because that wire was actually broken. But we don't get continuity on that wire there. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit awkward. So what I need to do now is just protect this area so as I'm not creating any shorts. So I'm going to heat this up. So I'm going to clean this up, get rid of this flux, and then I'm going to have to protect the area before I can go any further. And plus it'll help to hold these wires in place as well. I'm going to have to reroute them because I'm using the brush on it, but that's fine. So I'm going to use some solder mask. This is UVH902 by Relife. I sell this on my online store, but this stuff is absolutely fantastic. It cures rock solid in a few seconds. In fact, I've got to reroute them first. I just completely forgot about that. Never mind. Too busy trying to sell the products that I sell. Alright, so let's just route these. Just make sure they're not touching. And like I said, this is not going to be perfect, but we want to get it as good as we can get it. So I need to make sure that I've got enough room to run some more jumper wires underneath. I'm just going to spread this out a little bit. There we are. And then I'm going to use my UV light for a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's done. It doesn't even take 5 seconds, but I wanted that nice and solid, so I gave it a few more seconds. But there we go, that's done. So that's rock solid now, nice and protected. And I will protect it some more. I'll put another layer over it once I'm completely done, but yeah, that one's done. And now we just need to run the next wire, and I've put that wrong. That one is meant to be on the trace next to it. Dang it. I'm such a clown. Right, that wire's wrong. That wire needs to be over 1 because that is ground. There we are. That's good enough. That's fine. Alright, so next we're going to leave that one. In fact, no, I'll run it now. I do need to run it obviously to the correct location, but what I'm going to do first of all is just add a little bit of flux here. I'm going to tin that wire. Even though it's not making a contact, I can use it as a support. If it wants to. It's not going to do it. It is actually holding a little bit, but just not much. But I need to keep it in place while I put the solder mask on. So I'm going to hold that. I've got some solder on the iron now. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. So that's nicely supported there. You can see that solder blob. Just going to make sure that's sat there. Nice. There we are. And then I need to route this over to here. Right. So route that over to there. and break that away. And you'll notice that I've left this part here untinned. The cover, the coating, is still there. So I need to do the same with these next two. So we'll tin it there. And we'll tin it around there. So we're going to drop that there, like that. I'll break that away. I'm not going to route it yet. I'll route that one in a minute. It's not an issue. We're going to do the same again for the trace next to it. Tin the end. And then we'll tin it about there. There we are. Break that one away. And then we've got two more to do. So there's one. There's the other. You can't really see that, it's a bit blurred, I'm sorry about that. Alright, so I'll give this a clean. So again, just heat it up a little bit, just to warm that flux up. There we go. And notice that that wire that's underneath the other two is staying in place now, because I've got a little bit of structural support there. I will still protect it all with coating, but I just want to clean it all up first, and then I can route them all. So let's get these routed. So this one needs to go like so. Roughly something like that. Yeah, it looks a little bit of a mess. It's a little bit of a snake, but it should at least be functional. Should. Alright, so let's just get some more of this coating here. Whoops. Did not mean to do that. Right, so I need to just spread this out a little bit. Could also use a little small paintbrush or something to spread this. It would work the same. Just join all out together. Make sure we've got none of this coating on the pin. And there we go. I think that should just about do it. Well, just as soon as I cure this with UV light. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. Alright, that is beautiful. Right, so all of those are nice and solid now, and now I can manipulate these wires a little bit better. So basically I can position them correctly so as they're going to be sitting flush when the port is on. But for the most part, these are done. You know, these are not going to move. But we can manipulate them and get them to sit where we want now without worrying about them moving out of the way. We've got a little bit of excess which we need to cut off. There's also a bit of excess solder mask here as well, which I need to break away. Just because I'm going to need to be able to get to that part of the wire. We'll break that away, there we go. Good stuff. Alright. So before I start thinking about putting a port on here, I just need to trim some of these wires down a little bit. Just so they're not hanging over the edge of the board. There we are, they're nice and even-ish. And now I can remove a port from a donor board. So I've got myself a donor board here. I've got an Ethernet port and the magnetics module. I'm going to remove both at the same time. I'm going to start off with the magnetics module. So I'm heating up from under the board. You'll probably have just seen the hot air go under there. I'm heating up from under the board. I should be directly underneath the magnetics module here. We're going to heat up from under the board. And the reason I'm going for the module first is because that'll transfer a bit of heat into the ground plane without risking melting the Ethernet connector. So we just wait for the heat to transfer through. It takes a little bit longer, but it is safer. Okay, that's starting to come. Okay, there we go. So that's that removed, and then I'll go for the Ethernet port. So what I'm doing here as well, if you can see underneath the port, is I'm keeping my airflow moving now, just to stop me from damaging that connector. I'm going to lift it up from there, and there we go, beautiful. And that board just popped, and that's why it's dangerous to do this kind of repair. So that's probably just popped a trace on that one, but it's just so sensitive, it's unreal. Okay, so I'm going to bring the board I'm working on into play here. Before I drop the port on, I'm going to add this magnetic module. Add some flux. Actually, no, that's not a good idea. The reason it's not a good idea is because I'm not going to be able to get to the pins. So I'm going to need to do the port first. So let's just drop this port in place. It is a little bit melted, but there's nothing you can do about that when you're using donor ports. As long as the pins are not damaged, we should be okay. I'll try to avoid it as much as I could, but it should be fine. But what I'm going to do is just bring this back as far back as I can get it. And you'll see I've got those pins pretty perfectly lined up there. But I'm just going to add some solder to this side of the port. So I'm using Kester leaded solder. By far the best solder you'll ever use. I'll sell this on my online store as well. Okay, so now one's been soldered. I'm going to press it down. And just make sure that we're sitting flush to the board. There we are. This side. There we are. Right, let's just push down on here. Again, make sure we're sitting flush. And now I can come in and solder the pins. So these pins are obviously not connected at the minute. But we're going to need to solder each of these pins to the corresponding jumper wire. I'm going to need to press down a little bit on each pin as well. Actually, no, I'm not. Not on that one at least. Okay. So before I go any further now, I'm just going to run a continuity check on all of these. And the way I can do that is if I just touch the top of the pin only. I'll keep knocking the microscope there, sorry about that. If I just touch the top of the pin only and check it against the corresponding pin, we have a connection. We have another connection. Another. Yeah. 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 And yeah. And then if we just make sure we don't have any shorts to the pin next to it, we're good to go. So finally, I just need to reconnect this magnetics module. So I'm going to try and do this by hand without using hot air if I can, because I don't want to put any more hot air where that port is. I don't think I'm going to get away with that because we've got jumper wires to worry about as well. No, I'm going to need to get it to sit down flush, so I'm going to have to use hot air. I'll do it from underneath the board though. So I'll just get that roughly lined up. I'm going to heat up a little bit from the top of the board. Not so much so as to melt it. Just enough to get a little bit of hot air into it. And then I'll finish up underneath. This is not going to be aligned perfectly. Now I just need to touch up these solder joints because they're not great. It's awkward to get to these pins. But there we go. That should be a job done. I will double check everything. I don't think I've got a contact on those pins again. I think the hot air caused him to come off. I'll double check them. I'll have to check on continuity. That one's connected. No, it's not. There's no way that's connected. No. No, none of them are. Probably just the pressure of me pushing down on them. I'm going to resolder all of these pins. And this is why this is an awkward job, because as soon as you put the magnetic module on, you lose connection to the pins. But if you put the magnetic module on first, it's a lot more awkward to actually get to the pins. Just going to press down on them. Just clean that up. And that should be a job done there. If I see the wire move, I know we're good. Let's just check inside here. Yeah, we're good. Bit of IPA in there, but we're good. Alright, and as I said, the back of the port is melted, but what can you do? You know, you've got to use hot air just to remove the damn things, right? Alright, just make sure we've got solder on the ground anchors on that side. Alright, and finally, we're going to give it a test. I'll say finally, I'm going to do the HDMI port again on this, because I don't trust it. Actually, I don't know, it's probably okay. Oh, who am I kidding? I'll probably end up doing it. It'll be off camera though if I did do it, because, well, we've all seen a HDMI port get done, right? The main job here is to get this working. Yeah, that's too loose. No, I'm going to change that. I can't leave that like that. Okay, console turns on. There we are. Make sure it displays. It does. Good. Right, moment of truth. Do we get a decent contact on the HDMI cable? Sorry, on the Ethernet cable. That feels a lot better. Hey, there we go. That's lit up straight away. How about that? Right away that picked up. Picked up before the Wi-Fi did. There we go. And we have network connectivity. Right, okay. So, network. Test internet connection. Successful. 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 Type 2. Come on, give me a good speed. This is a very long cable as well, by the way. Something like 50 foot. It's very, very long. We're only getting 68 megabits a second. That's slightly concerning. Although that could be the cable. I'm pretty sure this is too long to be a gigabit cable. I don't know. I'll try another cable in a second. Right, let's unplug that. Yeah, that unplugged nicely. I'm going to plug in a different cable. LAN cable connected. There we go. Let's give that another test. This is a gigabit cable. There we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. Awesome. Straight away. Upload speed's a bit strange, but that could just be my network. But yeah, 513 megabits per second on that test. 748, there we go. Yeah, I think my network, it's probably being used. So, you know, I mean, actually that was downloading some the new firmware as well. Okay. That was downloading the new firmware as well, so that would have affected it. And plus, you know, it's, what, 6:05 PM. There we go, 9:24, perfect. It's 6:05 PM, my kids are all over the internet right now. You know, whatever the hell they're doing on the internet, but actually they're playing games. I don't allow them on social media, but yeah, they'll just be playing games. But if they're downloading and uploading and stuff like that, you know, it's going to be affecting my speeds and stuff. But yeah, there we go. That's around about what I'll get in this workshop. So happy days on that. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. I'm not going to change the HDMI port on camera because that's boring, and I need to wrap this video up. I've got other stuff I need to get done. So yeah, this console is now fixed, and I don't think it was anything to do with my previous repair, because like I said, I was really struggling to get that cable in and out, and then this one straight in, straight out, right? So yeah, and listen to this. Ow, I burnt my hand. It's a bit hot. Actually, that doesn't really click. This cable doesn't really click, but it does. Ah, there you go. There it did. But it does lock in. Yeah, locks in nicely, and I'm happy with how that's turned out. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Do you think it was my repair? I don't, but it'd be interesting to see what you think. But yeah, if you do need to organise a repair, get in touch at thecoded.repair. If you need parts and supplies to assist in your repair, you can buy those on my online store at consolefix.shop. As always, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to see more. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.